Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Matt Helgeson. Pleased today to be...
I don't remember what their name is, so sorry for the lame plug for nothing.
Partial plug.
That is an incredibly niche business.
But there's some nice looking systems, and it's cool to see a cool backlight on the old Game Boy Advance. I think they've increased the battery life too, or something.
Huh. And then they did the same thing with the DS, because the original, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was kind of ugly.
It wasn't terrible except for
Home, and we got text from Reiner.
yeah.
That might not have been there. Cool. Literally brought you back into the fold after more than a decade.
That's correct.
Wow. That's impressive stuff. But I'm sure, I'm sure you're not I don't think it's a system seller in the like broad sense of like a mass Grand Theft Auto type of game if that was exclusive. But I think for a certain audience, I think you're not the only one that might consider taking that plunge if you were on the fence.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that. It wasn't an easy choice, but after playing it twice, I said, okay, I'm going to do this.
Nice. And I know that Sony has announced some other stuff, I think, prior to TGS, some other kind of cool RPG stuff like the Persona.
Yeah, Persona 5.
Disgaea and some stuff like that. So I think that those are in the same way, they're niche titles, but I think that they definitely are very big deals to a smaller crowd, which I think, helps establish it there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to think anything else big that we haven't discussed that did you see any cool, I know that there's, kind of keynote addresses and presentations with developers and different things like that. Were you able to check out any of that stuff? Some of that stuff sounds cool.
It usually is. Honestly, I think we had Kyle on most of the panel coverage. I was mostly checking out games.
So you weren't really able to see any of that stuff?
Not really, no.
Well, there's always next year. I'm sure you'll probably try to be back. Do we hit most of the stuff that you saw?
Let's see. We hit a lot of it. There was so much, it's hard to say without pulling up my schedule now. It's a kind of a blur. That whole, those 4 days go by so fast.
Was Aliens there? Alien?
It was. In fact, they hit one of the coolest booths. You actually went into a alien pod.
Nice.
That isolated you from the show floor, so you couldn't hear any of that stuff from the outside.
That's one of the worst things about playing a demo on the show floor.
Absolutely. So that was a really cool gimmick, and of course, Below was there. I forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah,
and I'm really looking forward to that one too. Whenever that happens.
Was Playdead's Inside there?
What's that?
Inside, that game by Playdead. They showed it to E3. It was just like black and white people kind of walking. Do you remember that? Like just walking in a line. I think it's a Limbo guys.
Yeah, I certainly didn't see it there.
That might not have been there. Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Dan. I appreciate you stopping by and letting us know what PAX is like this year. It sounds like once again PAX Prime especially was a good event.
Again. And there was so much there that we didn't discuss. But you really have to be there to experience it. So I highly recommend going one year if you can.
Yeah, I'll have to try to maybe see if I can do that next year. Thanks a lot, Dan. I appreciate it.
Yep, thanks.
Stick around. We're going to be talking about Nintendo's. The day after our podcast last week, Nintendo surprised us all in the morning with some new hardware announcements on the new 3DS. So we're going to be talking about that since it happened after our show last week. So stick around for that. Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm once again your host, Matt Helgeson. In this segment, I'm joined by Brian Vore.
Yellow.
Jeff Cork.
Hello.
And as you know, I'm sure if you've been on the internet, last week, I think, we did the show on Thursday, and then Friday morning, me and Jeff were at home, and we got text from Reiner saying there's a new Nintendo handheld system that was just announced out of the blue on a Friday.
Yep.
So
just in Japan, middle of the night, no big deal.
So we
the middle of the night.
We cruised into work. I did a little feature called "Everything You Need to Know About the 3DS." That kind of summarizes a bunch of stuff. You can check that out. We also did a bunch of news coverage about some individual stuff. But yeah, apparently Nintendo said, "Hey, we're going to do a new 3DS," and it's got a bunch of new stuff.
Now, do you think they'll do a new 2DS?
I don't know. I don't think so. They just kind of did the 2DS.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, I think 2DS is supposed to be the basement bargain. Like, this is the cheapest thing we can make. And no 3D, just as inexpensive as possible. It'd be cool if they even maybe... Is it down to 99 yet? I think it's like 120 or something. So
yeah, I would expect they might have to dump that price a little bit on the 2DS, you would think. I don't know. It's odd. They reminded me of like Sega, like late Genesis Sega right now, with like having all these different models of the same hardware right now. So, but yeah, the 3DS,
The new 3DS.
the new 3DS, and this is, it's always good to have your cynicism confirmed as a person. I always enjoy that. So this is exactly why I think it's always like you get screwed when you buy Nintendo hardware early on, because this is, the first Game Boy Advance. That screen was garbage.
It was impossible to detect what was going on.
It was
You
non-backlit.
didn't have like a spotlight nearby.
Well, it spawned a whole side industry of like shark lights and those attachments, like those little like extendable lights where you could kind of like, it's like a reading light just to
Yep.
like, and then I think weren't there things where you could like, Jeff, we were talking about that, where you could actually
Oh yeah,
take out.
Yeah, I removed like the front bezel from my launch 3DS and installed like a light underneath that you could buy kits online.
a launch Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, and then almost immediately afterward, I did that. Then they were like, "Oh yeah, we've got the redesigned clamshell." Yeah,
I was in the same boat. I bought the system solely because of Metroid Fusion.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like 2 months later, it was like, oh, now it's a functional system.
Yeah.
You can buy again.
Thanks, guys.
There's actually a site up now that only takes old Game Boy Advances and adds backlights into them and does like custom outer shells. I don't remember what their name is, so sorry for the lame plug for nothing.
partial plug.
That is an incredibly niche business.
But there's some nice looking systems, and it's cool to see a cool backlight on
Yeah.
the old Game Boy Advance. I think they've increased the battery life too, or something.
Huh. And then they did the same thing with the DS, because the original, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was kind of ugly.
It wasn't terrible, except for looking at it wasn't great.
I mean, it just kind of looked like a
Functionally,
weird like proto. When you see prototype hardware and it's just kind of this gray blah box. That's kind of what the first DS looked like.
it looked like it was designed so that radar couldn't detect it.
Yeah. And then, of course, they came out with the DSi, which was really, I think, a really awesome. Still looks nice.
Yes.
The nice clamshell with the kind of had the nice black or white iPod kind of shiny finish and
Very classy.
Yeah, great. Love that system.
Perfect rectangle.
Yes, love it. Good. And now, I mean, I think you guys both bought 3DSs. It's a pretty nice system.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
I wish
bought-
that I would stop. When I play, I accidentally will turn 3D on that little slider.
Oh,
I wish I could. I should just glue it closed
Off.
Yeah,
So you've got the original 3DS, which
Yes.
I also bought
like a chump.
like an idiot before they did the gigantic price drop. I'm an ambassador,
yeah, you guys
though.
have been. That's right. You're an Brian, the ambassador status, though. Can you put a price on that?
Not really. You still can't download Game Boy Advance games on your 3DS Virtual Console.
That's right.
So you're using the Who's "Won't Get Fooled Again"
That's right.
bumper music, right?
But even though I did have that crappy system, I still bought the Zelda Special Edition 3DS XL because that XL screen looks great, and they have a thing that notches the 3D down in place, so you can't as easily accidentally pump it up.
Yeah.
There's a little lock at the bottom.
They know what people want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess let's move on to the new system. Wow, Brian, you're not gonna upgrade, are you? Or are you gonna get burned to third? See, it's people like you. That's why they do this, Brian.
I do the same. It's like with iPhones and
it's
things
true.
like that.
That is
like,
true.
I appreciate that they're trying to go forward in several categories and increase and make it a better system overall. You see iPads and phones always get like a nicer screen or better battery life or all these little features. I don't have necessarily a problem with them putting something out once every year and a half to kind of refresh the system a little.
Yeah. And Jeff alluded to, I think, probably the main flaw in a system called the 3DS is that basically nobody uses or likes the 3D because, it works on about the basest functional level you could say that it works. But in terms of actually playing it in the real world, in any kind of normal scenario, it's pretty hard to keep the viewing angle correct at this point. It's all blurry.
Yeah, and this supposedly addresses that, right?
Yeah. If they're mock-ups of a system turning in computer graphics with saying like, oh, it totally works. If this is true, they claim that they've radically, improved the viewing angle. And
Which that's great because the dude creeping on you on the bus will have a better peeping experience.
Exactly. But that's cool. Hopefully that maybe makes the 3D stuff that they have, in existing titles a little more appealing to people. Honestly though, if it's better, do you still want it though?
Here's the thing though, I'm pretty decent about I can hold it steady in front of me. I understand if I tilt it one way or the other, you're like, okay, the effect is lost. But even still, it's not something that I keep on. Besides, I'll flick it on every once in a while and be like, oh yeah, this is what this looks like. But
give it a try during a cutscene or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, look at these snowflakes coming in front of me.
Right, but 3D is not any kind of something that I seek out in movies or I guess everything I look at in real life is like that. I don't walk around like
true.
Popeye.
I'd like to think if it didn't give me make my eyes feel like they're crossing and a headache forming right behind my eyeballs.
Yeah.
I think this few times where I kind of line it up and get just the right angle, have it sitting on a desk or something and not move my head at all. It's like, oh wow, this looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like you're looking into a little fish tank or something. So I think if it just could hold together for the most part, I think it could be pretty all right. And I might actually leave it on, but for now I can only put it on for a few seconds at a time.
Okay, so you're confirming that the reason you want the new 3DS is for better 3D. That's all you're interested in.
I think it's one of the things that they should be doing.
Great features.
What are some of the other great features?
Well, the other thing I think, the big thing that I think a lot of people, when they showed the 3DS originally, thought was maybe missing, especially compared to the Vita, was the second analog stick. They eventually did sort of acquiesce to that by releasing this, was it Circle Pad Pro, which was a sort of a...
Anytime you clip
I was going to
something...
say strap-on, but it was a...
if you have to clip something on, that means you've failed.
Yes, it was an addition. Now it's going to be this little nub, which... It's cool. I think that's a great thing for the system. It looks really tiny.
It looks like the thing that you see on a keyboard, like an IBM laptop.
Yes.
ThinkPad?
Yeah.
ThinkPad, yes, exactly. So I guess it remains to be seen how responsive it is. But, I think if that opens the door to, some different gameplay experiences, that's cool. I don't know. Were there any games? Some games used, didn't Kid Icarus kind of use the Circle Pad Pro if you had it? I think
it did.
I think some games.
Resident Evil Revelations.
So I guess,
Metal Gear Snake Eater. Very few.
Yeah. I think another thing that probably it's not as glamorous or is noteworthy of a feature, but is probably just as important is the battery life is apparently going to be doubled, which I know. You guys probably have more experience. You're street passing at E3 and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
try and stop me.
I would never try to stop you.
No.
I would never.
Please don't.
No,
I don't want you to. I should have fully formed that thought. Please don't try and stop me.
But that's cool because that was kind of the one bummer I thought, because Nintendo's traditionally had pretty good battery life. Like the DS had great battery life, and that's the one thing Sony systems, always handhelds have kind of had bad battery life. So it was kind of disappointing when the 3DS kind of went back to more a small.
Wasn't it like the second iteration of their handhelds have good battery life? It seems like almost always the first version is kind of mediocre.
Right. Maybe you're right.
The XL has actually pretty solid battery life, and I think that a lot of that's due to the bigger hardware. They're able to just jam in a giant battery.
Yeah, yeah. And I should say that this new 3DS will be sold in the conventional and sort of XL models as well that you have right now. So you can have a big one if you want.
Which is an interesting choice on their part. They could have just said it's just all XL all the time.
Yeah.
Well,
they're splitting it up into two new things.
They're really into fragmenting the market as much as possible, I think.
They are. And actually, speaking of that, that's something that is sort of a caveat to people. And I think this was the one that maybe got some of the comments people a little riled up. And I think it's actually a fair criticism or thing to be sort of upset about is that I guess the system is more powerful. Some of the stuff in the chipset is, the processing power is greater, which that's awesome. But that also means that there will be games coming. Already they've said Xenoblade Chronicles, I think. The Wii game is coming and people are excited about that. But that's literally only going to be able to run on the new system. So I guess there are going to be games coming that will be new Nintendo 3DS exclusive, which it's cool. I guess they can make them better, but at the same time, I would feel a little put out maybe if I was looking forward to like Xenoblade or something like that.
This is going to be the most confusing thing possible, just because like if you go to a Target or like just kind of like a chain store and they've got their Wii games and the Wii U games are kind of just tossed together sometimes, depending, and you know what I mean. Just so like if you're not super familiar with games, you might think, oh, all these are the same. They're going to play on my Wii, and I mean you've added the letter U, and here you're just adding the prefix new.
Yeah,
and I can't imagine that as a platform is going to have like you can't keep calling it the new thing, right? Like if it's been around for like 2 years, are you still going to be referring to it as new 3DS or?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Japanese name. So far, it's only confirmed for Japan. And Apple has done the new iPad before. That was like the iPad 4 or the 3. And then they went to iPad Air after that. So I guess it'll be new until they make the new one. But when they come to the US, what naming convention do you think they should use if they decide to not go with a new thing like 3DS Plus or
3DSi? Maybe
they did that before. Yeah,
yeah.
DSi,
That would
that
kind
was
of
nice.
like deliver the same message maybe to people.
But I guess the I before was like, hey, we're finally acknowledging the internet and letting you do some downloads on this new DS store. But I don't know. It's tricky.
This is one of those things. It's not my problem. Like like I don't want to solve their